I'd like to welcome you all participants and speakers that are part of this webinar. Our webinar is devoted to the energy plans and energy efficiency of São Tomé and Príncipe. They're supported by the United Nations and also by the Ministry of Infrastructure and Natural Resources. We are also supported by ANER and PANER, and we're part of the strategic plan for investment in renewables, energy efficiency in the sector of electricity in São Tomé and Príncipe, supported by the Global Environmental Facility. I'd also like to thank all speakers for being here with us. And I'd like to thank you for being a part of all this. I'd like to project our agenda for today. We'll start with a strategic vision by José Bastos Sacramento, the General Director of Natural Resources and Energy of the Ministry of Infrastructure. Then we'll present the NREAP by Selby Ramos. He's part of the General Regulatory Authority of São Tomé and Príncipe. And then we'll present the NAPEE. We'll have Diodotce Lima doing that, the Director General of Natural Resources and Energy. We'll then have the roundtable tour with people from several sectors, several areas, and they will present their points of view on these programs, targets, ambitions, desires, etc. And we'll also include questions from our audience. You'll be able to ask questions. We'll jot them down, then we'll ask them during the roundtable. And then we'll have the closing session with Martin Lugmer from the UNIDO, United Nations Industrial Development Organization. I think you were all given the agenda. But anyway, we were expecting to go on for about 90 minutes. And without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to José Bastos Sacramento and give us his point of view and give us the strategic framework and also an institutional framework of these plans. I don't know if you'll share a screen with us or whether you'll just be speaking. Before we actually get stuck into it, there's the interpretation. This webinar is being interpreted simultaneously. We have some international participants. On the lower left-hand corner, there's a little globe. If you click on it, you can choose Portuguese or English. Then you can switch between interpreters, sound. You can choose your sound mix. On the bottom right, there's a chat function. You can write down your questions, and if we find they're pertinent, we'll include them in the roundtable. In case of technical issues, email us at val@aler.renovables.org. And now, truly, without further ado, I give the floor to José Bastos, Sacramento. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to be here as part of this webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, in the name of the government of São Tomé and Príncipe and the Ministry of Infrastructure, I'd like to thank UNIDO for working by supporting, and they've helped create this tool, AGER and NAPEE. I thank also all the institutions, all the bodies in the sector of energy, and also the National Platform for Sustainable Energy. We'd like to thank them all for all the projects that helped align this paper or this document with the needs of the government and the needs of the country. Ladies and gentlemen, by following the SDGs, we've been trying to meet the SDGs, and we have immense resources that can help us meet our energy demands. But the energy sector and its development have been limited by challenges that are common to many insular states, as the cost of imported energy and high energy tariffs, inadequate infrastructure, and not enough financing. On the other hand, the energy policy has been influenced by the fight against climate change, and we've privileged local and renewable resources over evolution and efficiency. When it comes to producing electric power, there will be a reduction in economic scale of the project, and we want to privilege locally sourced energy like sunlight, for instance. There are several tools and mechanisms that the government has implemented, and when we implement some measures, we're trying to reduce the use of fossil fuels that work towards the production of electric power, and we hope to be en route to reach, or we want to be closer to reaching the SDGs. Because our market is so small in insular states, and we need to explore the realistic potential of renewable energy. We want to attract direct foreign investment, and we want to ensure independent energy production. All these processes were made harder by the pandemic, and has made it harder for São Tomé to find financing. Only with the proper financing can we meet our national goals, making us more energy secure. And we'll be closer to the countries that ratified the Paris Accords, that have committed to limiting the increase in global warming. We want to improve local capacity, strengthening partnerships. We want to upskill and reskill technicians, and we want to mitigate the risks associated with investment. Only by doing all this can we replicate general efforts in sustainable energy. You know, the targets in these tools should reach at least 50% of, should have us reach a huge percentage of renewable energy by 2030. We have to think of the mini networks with storage or without storage. We want to respect the strategic planning of the national grid and the governmental guidelines. We've always been supported by UNIDO. We've tried to develop a portfolio of financiable projects in order to facilitate the energy transition of the targets in AGER and NAPEE. Our partners are strongly aligned with this country's energy transition route. We want to reduce the dependency of fossil fuels, and we want to increase our quota of renewable sources. I wish you a very fruitful webinar, and so I therefore declare open this webinar on National Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Action Plans for São Tomé and Príncipe. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think you've given us an integrated vision of the goals of São Tomé and Príncipe and how these plans can contribute. Now, I'd like to present the NREAP by Selby Ramos, the present National Renewable Energy Action Plan. He worked at IMI for a long time, and since 2019, he's the senior engineer for AGER, and he's also an advisor for technical issues on the matters of electricity. Welcome, Selby Ramos, to our webinar. Please turn your camera on. Well, there may be some technical issues with the camera, so we'll just wait for a second. Can you please turn your camera and microphone on, please? Well, we can see your screen now. We have our support staff here. If you're having technical issues, we'll wait. Good morning. Here I am. So I'm at the Director General for Natural Resources. I'm trying to show my screen. So I tried to frame what you do. No, this is a unique moment, and today is a good example of that. Of all the work everything ALER has done and how ALER has worked with us. We've had energy problems, power problems since yesterday, and this just goes to show how much we need to invest in renewables, in energy efficiency, and how we need to stop being dependent on fossil fuels, and also we shouldn't be dependent on power generated by generators. So financially speaking, our system is very complicated, very hard to maintain. So our national plan for renewable energies, the NREAP. Yeah, we can see you now. No, we can still see your screen. We don't see the full screen. We can see your computer, your screen. So we see the slide and the next slide. If this works for you, it works for us. So you can see this. We can see both you and the presentation. Very well. Well, let's get started. Well, once again, good morning, everyone. I'm sorry for this minor hurdle we've been testing, but, well, we still had a little glitch. My name is Selby Ramos. I'm from the regulatory agency, and I'm the head of the technical department for the electrical sector. So the NREAP was drafted under the scope of the strategic program for the promotion of the investment in renewable energies and energy efficiency in São Tomé. And this program was implemented between 19 and 20. it's going to be implemented between 2019-2023, by the Ministry of Infrastructures and Natural Resources. It was technically and financially supported by UNIDO and by the Global Environmental Fund. And we also counted on some partners that worked towards the same end. And so the program was prepared with UNDP, World Bank, and the African Development Bank. This plan encompassed all energy policies on a national level, and it defined specific targets for renewables, and its target is to reach is to have renewables in the national grid until 2030. Following the NDCs. What are the goals? The goal is to cut on the import of fossil fuels, of course. I'm talking mostly about diesel that fuels generators, energy producing generators. We have other goals when it comes to domestic use. This fuel is also used domestically, and we want to have renewables that are cleaner, safer, and we want to use these renewables to replace more traditional fuels. With this plan, we are also striving for change. We also want to change the transport sector. And we also want to have better fuels in the transport sector. And we also want to have electric powered cars in the country, as well as these goals and targets. The plan is very clear about the trajectory, about the path and the programs that should be implemented. It identifies number of proposals, needs, because our energy sector needs a lot more legislation on several levels, also level of regulation. And it's towards that end that the plan identifies those needs, those gaps. We don't just need regulation. We also need institutional investment. We need to have people, skilled people. We also need to divulge, to publicize a lot of information. and we want to raise awareness to climate change. We want to make people aware of how much we spend on power. So we need awareness raising measures, and we also need specific programs. People with for areas that are still lacking, like the vegetable charcoal. How did we develop this NREAP? We have the LEAP software, low emissions analysis platform, and we use this to create two scenarios. The first scenario, business as usual, where we don't consider any mitigating measures. And the other one with mitigation measures that consider the implementation of that considers using these mitigation measures to reach a sustainable situation, a sustainable system. We also took into consideration greenhouse gases, and we tried to see the difference in the reduction of greenhouse gases when using one scenery and the other. At this point, we're still depending on imported fuel. We have a target, and the presented target is 72% of power until 2030. We want 49% to be solar powered, 18% hydro, 5% biomass. And these targets will remain in place between 2030 and 2050. And there's also additional ancillary targets like reduction of greenhouse gas emission gases by 27%. Additional targets. We want to increase the renewable capacity. We want to rehabilitate some of the structures we have and build some small hydropower plants with 17.30 megawatts. And this technology is to be the runoff river type of runoff river technology. And some will have 15.30 megawatts connected to the network and 2 megawatts not connected to the grid. Additional target. There are several solar power projects expecting 47 megawatts. And we're still thinking of isolated panels on the roofs of buildings. We all have a lot of biomass, and we should use it and optimize it. We want to reach 4.68 megawatts. In this chart, we can see
informações.
We are not really aware of how much vegetable and charcoal and firewood is being used, but we hope to achieve that figure. But we need some studies, analysis to have to further complement our strategies. Now, liquids here. We do have a use of around 27% all around the country, and we hope to meet our goals in 2030 of 29.9%, 87.5% in 2050, 36.9 2030. And when it comes to other technologies as well, we would like to improve those. It's not 0.8%, 0.8% today, very low, but we hope to gradually increase this figure here. We also have other scenarios on our mind, the grid connected systems and the disconnected to the grid systems. So we do have the solar panels, photovoltaics, and water power plants as well. And we need to, for both of these projects, to recover the current infrastructure, but also to implement new projects that we are going to introduce. When it comes to grid non-connected systems, we do know that we are aware that there are outermost regions and areas that still don't have access to this. They're isolated. But what we want is for these off-the-grid services that we will achieve eventually that connection to photovoltaic power plants or to hybrid systems, so that we can make this go forward. I'm very sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to let you know that you have 5 minutes remaining. 5-6 minutes, please. All right. I'll try to make it brief. Thank you very much for that pointer. So 2030 to 2050, we think that we can meet these goals if we keep on studying and pushing forward with these goals. And renewable energies here, 2030, 2050. I've mentioned this before. I don't think I wouldn't like to repeat myself here, but we want to increase our installed capacity already, 69 to 98%, and also solar panels, solar plants that we don't have any in the country. So we want to get to 46.95 megawatts. When it comes to an increase of energy, so that we can have a substantial amount of energy being produced by the renewables. Urban and housing sector here, cooking and heating, we would like to increase that. We also have goals here, and we would like to implement them throughout the board. Charcoal here. We need to implement different technologies so we can make this process more efficient. We don't have any studies yet, and we definitely need a study, an analysis, so that we can reach this goal. In the housing sector, solid fuels, we're expecting a significant increase all over the country. Investments. Now, how much will all this cost? We definitely need to put a number to this. So, bearing in mind all the plans, also bearing in mind new water plants, photovoltaic and biomass. As you can see here from the table, we're expecting to have a total necessary investment of around, and this is up until 2030, 171 million, over a little bit, $171 million, $171 million, a little bit over that, so we can reach our goals. Another issue here, like I said previously, is energy-related policies. So we do bear this in mind. The first column to the left, we have the type of energy. We're developing studies here, increasing, building on our organizational capacity, the link between power plants and infrastructure. So also improving the legal framework, providing better incentives. For instance, transparency and decision support to decision making in terms of policies and information, and a little bit a better, clearer message and information about the products that are part of the plan. So we also have other initiatives, raising awareness and improving our infrastructures. So all of this should be developed within the framework of an implementation program. And our plan does identify all these different aspects. We can see here that already been implemented, already been achieved right now at 2022, and we're in a way making headway here so that we can prepare what's coming next. And the plan also supports the country in the sense that the measures are very detailed. So I think this is of huge importance and gives it a little bit more of backbone when it comes to its own implementation and to everyone who's involved in its implementation. And last but not least, all the potential financially, obviously a very positive impact in the country's economy, because we will be able, by using more renewables, we'll be able to release the country, not fully, but to at least trade off a little bit and provide some relief to the country, for the country when it comes to that high dependency. Socially speaking, also a huge impact here. We will improve service access, service quality, and obviously that will increase quality of life, quality for everybody living in the country. Environmentally speaking, this is undeniable unless we start using again fossil fuels. And also in the housing sector, if we focus on the kitchens here, obviously women and children that use a little bit more firewood and wood to cook in their kitchens, that will have an impact as well. So final deliberations here, wrapping up, I think I would like to bring your attention to three points here that I will read out for you. I think it's very important for us to realize that these goals have been adopted in a participative process, fully detailed one with exchange of information and opinions from all stakeholders. We have several studies that are part and parcel of our measures here, and the goals. One of the goals will be to uh, further analyze different projects on the basis of these sources. So after 2030, what we want that our mix, our energy mix, can be a little bit different as we go along and start seeing results. Other very important aspects that we need to bear in mind here in the country to make sure that we have a good implementation of these projects. Political stability first, goals and complementary programs. We need to continue joint efforts from our national platform for energy efficiency and regional based actions, because we are part of a community, and this affects also the other areas of Central Africa. So with this said, I now would like to thank you for your attention. I think I'm sure that I did. Um, it took me a little bit longer to finish this, but it was my pleasure to be able to introduce, to present and share my thoughts with you here. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your summary abilities, because this was very, very useful. If you wouldn't mind, stop sharing your screen for now. Anyway, we will upload these presentations on our website. These were presentations, as you could see, that were at a lot of data, figures, and sometimes we have to skim through these presentations, and we don't have time to go into into the into the into into the details and the nitty gritty of everything. So we will upload those presentations on our website. So we will now move over quickly to the next point. We will talk about National Action Plan for Energy Efficiency. We'll hear Diodotce Lima, Director General for Natural Resources and Energy. Welcome to you, sir. And I would like to give you the floor so that you can, first of all, share your screen, and that we can get to know a little bit more of your work and the work you do with the NAPEE, NAPEE. I think, if you don't mind, you could stop sharing your screen and just show us your PowerPoint, because I think it's even smaller if you do it like that, the image there. Just share your PowerPoint presentation without choosing full screen. If you see that little button there, end presentation, you can click on there and then share your presentation without choosing full screen. Please, that looks great. Please go ahead. Good morning, everybody. Just like the previous speaker, two parts here, renewable energy and energy efficiency. So I'll go on about the energy efficiency. I won't repeat what has been said about co-financing and the sponsors of this program. Previous speaker already mentioned this. We do have an agenda here, introduction, and then we have the lay of the land, regulatory and legal framework, national measures, goals and indicators and goals, and then the conclusion. So a lot of people here in this webinar don't know São Tomé and Príncipe. It's a small country in sub-Saharan Africa, as part of the small insular states, developing small insular states. It's located around the Guinea Gulf, 300 kilometers from the continent. Two islands make São Tomé and Príncipe, with a distance between them of around 150 kilometers. And we have around roughly 220,000 inhabitants. 1,001 square kilometers. It's our roughly area, the area of our country, but it's changing because of climate change. So now I think it's lower than that. The economic situation of the country. We are an island state, so we are disconnected from big trade centers, like all island states are. We know that the vast majority of the countries that are part of the continent have their lives a little bit easier when it comes to be connected to the grid and also to the commercial and trade grid. So that's easy or easier for them. Energy production for us is thermal. 90% of the system of all our system is made up of thermal machines. So we don't produce oil, and this is a heavy load for the country to bear. Now, second point. Now, a lot of people here taking part in this webinar have nothing to do with energy. So this word energy does, I think, rub me the wrong way, as it were. So we have firewood that we can transform into heat. We have chemical energy. We have oil. We also have different types of energies here, electrical energy as well. So it's a broad term. It really depends on the context we're talking about. And energy efficiency is the capacity we have with a specific amount of energy to make something work, and so that we don't have to resort to primary energy or primary type of energy. So a small amount of energy, we can produce a lot. In São Tomé and Príncipe, we have a lot of biomass, firewood, and charcoal for domestic consumption. A diesel as a fossil fuel, that's what we use for electricity and electrical energy. And we're roughly, we estimate that around 72% population uses solid fuels to cook. Firewood, for instance, 45.6% of all domestic households, followed by charcoal, 26.5, oil, 25.5, and the liquefied gas, around a bit, only around 1.5% in households. the last information that we were able to compile was, I think it's from June 2021, and it shows that in 2019, 52% of the households were consuming firewood and charcoal. And that's why we have to come up with measures to fight this. We are proposing measures, and the goal of these measures is to replace gradually the solid fuels for cooking for liquid fuels, mostly liquefied gas. Obviously, we also introduce as well enhanced stoves, more efficient. We usually resort to traditional 3 stones, as it were, stoves. We also like to implement different technologies for cooking, namely solar stoves or electrical stoves. But that will be very gradually. So basically, here in São Tomé, we cook like this: a stove, a 3-stone stove. We can see that there's a lot of loss of heat, loss of energy, as you can see. And our action plan, suggests that we would swap this for an enhanced stove, so we can direct the heat just to one point, and by doing that, we can maximize our energy consumption and maximize also our efficiency. The lay of the land when it comes to our national energy system. Losses. We do have losses in our electric system. We are in the red with deficits when it comes to production and consumption, and bearing in mind that we are usually thermal, and all that machinery is not very much efficient, and when we compound this with the electrical part of the system, we have total losses around 33%. 11 are considered to be technical losses, and 22% what we call commercial losses. That has to do with misreadings when they have to read the values from the grid, from local grids or households, for instance. So we need to have more raise awareness campaigns to improve our energy efficiency and proper readings. So what do we have to do? We're not gonna stand still. No way. So we do have a project here, trying to support the government so that we can improve plants. And we're trying to implement here a different system of 2.2 megawatts PV system, like changing light bulbs as well. It's a different project with the support of the World Bank. And we will see this later in the presentation. Changing fluorescent light bulbs for LEDs. Air conditioning. We know that nationally, especially in the public sector, when we have a type of our air conditioning, because we still don't have labeling when it comes to air conditioning, and we have air conditioning units that have been reutilized from from the junkyard. Sometimes we have very low temperatures, and then we have need to the point that we need to start wearing a jacket. It would be a lot easier if we just raise the temperature a little bit, raise it a little bit. Energy efficiency to turn off devices when they're not being used. Obviously, go for more efficient transportation modes, appliances as well, and until 2030, what we want to have a more efficient transportation. We have transportation and vehicles in São Tomé, principally from the 70s. That's not efficient at all. Appliances also more efficient. And this is part of the UNIDO project. There's a couple of regulations here we want to put in place, so we can define type of products that can come in our country. Enhanced stoves, to swap these 3-stone, 3-rock stove for enhanced ones, and gender issues as well. Here in São Tomé, women, because of cultural traditions, they don't worry that much about sustainability and energy efficiency. So we need to raise awareness and build that capacity with the women to change this. And ALER is helping us to do this. And we're having workshops so we can empower women when it comes to energy sustainability. You can see here this pie chart when it comes to the national electric system. So 47% housing and residential consumption, 33 institutions, state and others, 16% commerce and services, and we're not very strong in the industrial sector, so only 4%. So hotels and some scattered production centers there, here and there. When it comes to access to the grid, to the national grid, we estimate that around 87% of the Santomean population does have access to the electricity services, 74% in the island of São Tomé, and 100% in the REAP, the autonomous region of São Tomé. The energy policy of São Tomé does have a goal to get to the 100% electrification rate until 2030. This is according to our development plan supported by the World Bank. The legal framework, I think the regulation that is being applied to the energy sector in São Tomé, still all the regulations they're not a lot, and I think in a way it mirrors the other regulations for other sectors of our economy. So we don't have a general law about energy efficiency. We do have decrees and bills that are a little bit more focused on different types of energy usage and ways to gather energy. We don't have a general energy policy that will have and encompass all energy dimensions across the board. So we need to bridge this gap, and that's why we decided to develop these national action plans. When it comes to energy efficiency and renewables, we do have a couple of bills of decrees from 2021. The GOP, published in February last year. And what it aims to do is that until 2030, around 50% should be coming from renewable energies. So we've been seeing improvements in terms of grid, in terms of energy efficiency as well. We also have a big wave of national communication in order to, again, increase energy efficiency and reducing our greenhouse gas. And we also have, obviously, the Sustainable Development National Plan. And all the plans here have to do with sustainable energy sustainability. We do have a decree law that regulates the whole sector, and that's the basic law here. This law is still being applied. And all of these projects and bills strive to improve energy efficiency. We have different projects here, one implemented by MI in 2019, changing light bulbs, for instance. MI with women, a team made of women, so a gender based sort of project here, and was trying to swap light bulbs for LED light bulbs. Also another project with support of the World Bank, electric sector recovery. We're trying to improve and modernize the grids and the counter and the readouts that we have in the grids. Another project we have is being supported by the Global Environment Facility and by UNIDO as well. And the UNIDO project is more centered, a bit more focused on the renewables, but in partnership with ALER, for instance, we did create our National Association for Renewables, so we can improve energy efficiency. And we also have a couple of regulations that are trying to, we are implementing it, and we're trying to use them as incentives. Also, we're trying to implement high and low tension equipments, all equipments that are ultimately going to be used in our system, and also labeling, appliance labeling, and we're trying to implement this. I'm sorry to cut you off here. If you can hear me, 5 minutes. 5 minutes if you can. Now, we two basic scenarios here. Let me just give you an example. In 2050, we can see that energy consumption is around 5,500 terajoules with no mitigating measures. So if we don't do anything until 2050, our energy consumption will reach this peak, 5,500, 5,500. But with the measures that we are proposing here, in 2050, our consumption will be below 5,000. So the white the white part of the bar you see there reflects the mitigating measures with or without. And the same thing could be applied to different types of energies. We have scenarios here with mitigating measures and without mitigating measures. again, over 5,000, but with mitigating measures without below 5,000.
Comes to light bulb, air conditioning. If we don't do anything, the curves this one. The same thing goes for greenhouse gases. If we don't do anything, you have the red curve. If we do something, you see the blue curve. As for the target, these are the targets. When it comes to devices, till 2022, we already have a regulation for refrigerators, air conditioners, and light bulbs until 2022. Until 2030, we'll have other regulations with dishwashers, with clothes washers, etc. By 2030, we'll replace 611,000 light bulbs until 2030. As for public lighting, we'll replace 13,750 units. When it comes to residential or commercial lighting, we'll replace almost 600,000 units. By 2030, we'll want to have 500 efficient vehicles. We have cars that date back to the 70s. So by 2031, we'll introduce electric cars. We have an electric power gap. There's a lot more demand than production. As for losses, we want to decrease our losses by 30% by 2030, and technical losses and commercial losses, we want to lower them as well. We want to do this by raising awareness. Well, this was the long and short of it. The government has their plan, and all stakeholders were asked to draft this document with us. So we'll just, our technical staff will just support the government in implementing all these measures, because greenhouse gases are an issue. For those who live in São Tomé, there was a rise in seawater yesterday. So we need to be careful, be mindful of these greenhouse gases. We need to do something. We need to be more energy efficient, use more renewable sources. Thank you so much for your attention. That's it on my part. Thank you very much. This was a very rich presentation. I think the images were also very clear, very graphic, and they helped us understand the context of São Tomé. Please, can you stop sharing your screen now? we can still see your screen. So we'd like to move on to a discussion, sort of a round table. We invited some elements that work in the energy sector, some people who are connected to the energy sector. We'd like them to have their points of view. Like I said, these are very ambitious goals. We invited Leonel Wagner, the advisor to the Minister of Energy and coordinator of the Sector Transformation Project. Invited Ramos, the Director General for Renewable Transport, and Adelino Santos from AENER, and Wildmark Trovoada of APRS. Because I'd like to give the floor to Leonel Wagner. I'd ask you to please be brief. No more than 3 to 5 minutes, so that we can have a broad perspective of some of the essential issues that should be highlighted, whether opportunities or challenges. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? I'd like to welcome everyone and all those who are with us for the first time. We had 2 presentations. We also got a glimpse of the government policies. And these 2 presentations gave a clear picture of the policies that the partners for development have developed São Tomé and Príncipe, the energy. So we have the action plan for renewables and for energy efficiency. And we need to make sure that we have enough resources in order to implement these action plans. As for the sector transformation plan, which I coordinate myself, this program is at the tip of the pyramid. We have several partners, and we'll have to have sector reforms. We'll reform the EMEA, EMAE, AGER, etc. We want to have legislation that provides a good entrepreneurship environment. We want to build the framework, the legal framework to establish a market. We need to establish also support by donors, by other partners. And we want to make sure that we have a good business environment. And we want to make sure that all the tax and all the customs hurdles are dismantled. Generally speaking, I'd just like to congratulate all the technical staff that made the 2 previous presentations. and I'm at your disposal. And if you have any questions that need clarifying. So basically, this is what I do. Thank you very much. I think you did press the relevance of resources, that all this is very necessary to support our plans. We need to have a good framework in terms of resources. And I'd now like to give the floor to our next speaker. So again, I'd like to ask you to be very brief, speak no more than 3 to 5 minutes, and like you to highlight the most relevant aspects. I'd like you to tell us how NREAP and NAPEE can be relevant and implemented in your country. Hi, everyone. Well, a lot has been said about transport in São Tomé and Príncipe. They're the second largest polluter in our country, transport. We've already taken some steps, but the result is still lacking. And I'm talking about issuing licenses for public transit. We've already issued 3 licenses. We made a proposal to cut on the taxes, duties for the import of buses in order to stimulate public transport. And still, up to this day, we have no public transport network. The targets, the goals that our colleagues mentioned. When it comes to transport, we want to have regular inspection of vehicles in order to stop the use of cars that are now almost 40 or 50 years old. But that's another issue. And it would have to be the government to take these measures. As for introduction of electric cars, motorcycles, buses, all of them electric. This will depend on the electric grid, and we hope it improves. And we hope it improves as soon as possible. We want to have more efficient transport. We can use biodiesel. We have indeed a very small market. We could possibly try to limit some cargo trucks, the use of some cargo trucks, because they're very heavy and they pollute heavily, and they ruin the roads. The roads themselves are not great, so it gets even tougher to get around. Most consumption happens in our capital city. And so sometimes we have dozens of trucks headed to the north, and so they consume a lot of fuel, they pollute, etc. We could maybe do some ducts that would prevent the need for so many trucks carrying fuel for them. Maybe we could find backers. We have the ideas, but it's very hard to implement things because we don't have the resources. I'd like to thank you for the invitation, and I'd like to thank all the speakers for the chance to be here. Oh, thank you. Thank you. And it was what you said was very important because countries and the communities and cities, they're not static. So mobility is very necessary, whether it's electric or not, but it's a factor of pollution and consumption. And we need to integrate this element into these policies so that the government can progress. So thank you very much for being so brief. I would like to invite everyone to ask any questions in our chat room. So now I'd like to give the floor to Wildmar Trovoada with the Association for the Promotion of Renewable Energies and Sustainable Environment. Wildmar, please, you have the floor. Wildmar, can you hear us? Are you online? We can't see you, but we can hear you. Thank you very much for inviting me to be here, part of this webinar. I've been listening very carefully. I was especially attentive when you talked about the NREAP. There were several very interesting topics. We talked about the installed capacity. So I read the draft, the summary of these targets, what we need to do by 2030 and by 2050. The installed capacity for 2030 was 6.8, but this didn't change. The installed capacity didn't change. I don't know if this is meant to be. This is by design, but the projection is to have a constant installed capacity between 2030 and 2050. So we have a tool that serves as a as guidelines. I'm sure this will revolutionize the renewable energy sector. As for the other presentation, NAPEE. I'm working in the project for the recovery of the electric sector. So some of the things link directly with what I do. The replacement of the light bulbs, all these projects are ongoing. They will bring some improvement. And they will lead to more energy efficiency with the replacement of light bulbs and the increase in capacity of this power plant. On our end, we're available to take part. And believe that if we can implement all our targets and all our goals, I think we will be energy efficient, and our country be better days from an energy standpoint, public service, because we're now feeling side effects of the fossil fuel we burn, and everybody has seen that this is unsustainable. Cannot go down this road anymore. Now it's up to the experts to see what the choices are and to see if the ones we're looking at are the best ones. However, we believe that we need to travel this road step by step. And we have a long-term goal and we want to reach a positive result. So basically that's it. So like I said, I had this question when it comes to the action plan, the figures for the medium and short and long term are the same. But I think we have all the tools to develop more work and to help our country not be dependent on fossil fuels anymore. And on my part, that'll be it. Thank you, Mark. And thank you for asking this question. So before asking this question of Diodotce and Selby, I'd like to ask two questions that were asked in the chat. Julian Hole asked, how do you intend to use biomass to produce energy? Are you going to use butane gas? We have another question of Gordon Lima. Talks about the need to invest in batteries. And how can you, because solar power requires an investment in batteries, and is this all being figured into your plans? And how do you see the need to use batteries? So I'd like to ask Selby or Diodotce to tell us a little about this. and try to answer these questions. I'm sorry, I didn't get the second question. The question is by roadmap. We talked about the medium and long-term goals. The second question is about biomass and the use of traditional stoves and cooking. And the third question is about the need to invest in batteries. So very well. The first question, well, I'd like to greet him and thank him for this question. So he talked about the installed capacity in 2030 and 2050. The plan we have now, what we want is to, when we reach installed capacity in 2030, then we'll be able to meet the needs of the country between 30 and 50. What I mean is if we reach this goal by 2030, then we won't need to increase the goal by 2050. If we apply this plan properly, by 2030, we'll reach our installed capacity targets, allowing us not to add to the installed capacity by until before 2050. So by 2030, if the production is 75 gigawatt hour, then if we don't touch anything, by 2050, it will be 162 gigawatt hour. So the system in 2050 will still respond to the country's energy needs. When it comes to biomass, of course, country needs to invest in biomass. We have a lot of potential. We have a lot of natural resources for biomass, a lot of vegetable resources. And we don't want to cut down trees to produce electricity, but we can have a more efficient use of our biomass, of the biomass we already have at our disposal. And we know there's some people interested in using biomass for domestic use, for processing trash, for using the biomass in the trash system. Yeah, and the plan foresees that. That's for the batteries. We want to have a continuous and stable energy providing service. And that's why we need investment. But knowledge that systems, battery powered systems, make everything more expensive because batteries are very expensive. And batteries are nowadays much better, and they tend to be better and better, but we want them, the price of batteries to be lower so that countries like ours have the ability to purchase batteries to store the energy that is produced. As for the batteries, I'd like to add something. The plan talks about 40% solar power, and a survey conducted shows that the cost of solar powered energy with batteries after a number of megawatts becomes more expensive than hydropower. So what I ask you is, these targets included in the plans, they should account for these costs producing energy. Because after a certain threshold, the cost of producing energy will be so high that it becomes unprofitable. But of course, the prices can change. But I'd like to understand if you're trying to balance investment in technology with cost, because batteries are very expensive, and if you go beyond a certain threshold, it might not be financially worth it. Like, thank you again. I hope I can be useful. First issue with the batteries. I'm sorry, but not first issue, biomass. In this current plan, in the sector transformation plan, this program has 4 or 5 prongs: institutional reform, adjusting the institutions to the electric market, to the energy market, the regulation, public and private investment, and energy efficiency itself. Well, we've gone into the public investment. We're recovering the mini hydro plants in Papagayo, for instance. And as for private investment, our portfolio has 5 companies with solar powered companies, do solar power. And when they applied to this project, they needed to have, there was a requirement that they had batteries. So they have to install 2 bridges of 3 to 5 megawatts. So all of this, the batteries, and the issue with the batteries has been included in the plans and in the licenses issued to the private company. As for biomass, one of the companies produces solar power and another one produces biomass. And they will work in the nighttime. The biomass will work in the nighttime and the solar power will work in the daytime. And the biomass and the diesel power plants will work in the night for the next 3 years when we'll get the mini hydro plants. I don't know if this was useful, but if you have any other issues that I can help with, don't hesitate. No, this was very, very enlightening. So I'd like to close Q&A part because we're running late. I'd like to go on to the closing session. Martin Ludmar, expert in sustainable energy, UNIDO. He has a lot of, he's coordinating the expansion of the regional network of sustainable energy. So I'd like him to close the session. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to close this session. In the name of the UNIDO, we would like to close this session. And we'd like to thank all participants involved here for all the partnerships. So, climate change, budget restraints, and COVID pandemic, and the recent spike in oil prices just shows that small island states are pressed more than ever to transition to efficient energy. So decisions we make today in terms of investing in energy infrastructures will determine productivity and the social and economic opportunities for the future generation of São Tomé and Príncipe. We do have to begin today transitioning. It's now or never. With these action plans for renewable energy and energy efficiency, private sector and the public partnerships and the public sector now has a practical roadmap on how to transition and to make this a reality from 2030 to 2050. Plans show that this is sustainable. It's only possible and it's only doable, and it's also good for business. We do have problems, like we just heard. There will be barriers, obstacles, of course, but it would be worse. It would be better, actually. It will be better than what we have today. So UNIDO, my organization, in cooperation with other international partners, we will support São Tomé and Príncipe in the next coming years for the implementation of the projects. As we've just heard, we've heard about the economic benefits and budget estimate benefits as well. These are substantial. Let me just repeat a couple of points here. A reduction on around 1 million tons of diesel until 2050. That would be at least $1 billion saved. Obviously, we are taking into account the projected value of diesel. We can't be sure of its final cost, but also benefits for health sector, education sector, also the other industrial activities as well. It will give much more opportunities for young men, for the youth, and for women as well. Costs for infrastructure investment less than $200 million. So they're far less than the costs of not doing anything. So energy efficiency and renewables, they're growing and they offer green jobs when it comes to services and manufacturing and production. And we do know that we have a lot of well-educated young men and women that want to work, increasing productivity and increasing job opportunities. That will be very beneficial to women and young people in rural areas, where if they can work with bioenergy, for instance, if they can work with small photovoltaic systems, for instance. Housing sector and industrial sector will benefit from a lower energy price, and this will be more sustainable in the long term. A lot of investments in renewables will come cheap in a way, because it will be co-financed by private investors, other type of national credits, and also from foreign companies. I would also like to tell you that São Tomé and Príncipe will be an important partner for the new Central Africa Center for Renewables and Energy Efficiency that we're setting up in partnership with all the other states of Central Africa, in Luanda, Angola, and will come, and this will open at the end of the year. This regional center will facilitate cooperation between countries of Central Africa and will provide assistance in all the region, from the region, and within the region. This center will be a great platform for coordinating, joint learning, and creating green jobs for local companies. So I would like to invite the São Tomé and Príncipe government to participate in the center. We've been working very actively, and I would like to now conclude my remarks, and thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Martin. I think we couldn't close this session a better way. I would like to thank everybody who participated in this webinar. Everything you said just enriched this webinar, and thank you very much for all the participants online that sent their questions and were with us here. We will send you a small survey that you will receive in your mailboxes. So we'd just like to get some feedback from you and see how we can improve the way we do things in upcoming sessions. I now close this webinar. I hope it's been productive to you and enlightening. On our website, we will be able to download presentations from today, and we have all our details in case of queries or doubts, or if you want to get in touch with us, please do. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Thank you very much as well from my side. And we remain at your disposal if you want to get in touch with us. If you think that's to be helpful, we remain open. From my end too, I would like to thank you very much. Thank you in particular to ALER and UNIDO and all the partners. We do remain completely open to you, so that we can continue fighting this fight and to improve energy efficiency in São Tomé. Thank you.